Nous sommes ravis que vous soyez ici ce soir. My name is Riley Palanca. I'm the Membership Services Coordinator of the Quebec Writers Federation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this information session about how the 2022 Quebec law pertaining to the status of the artist will apply to you as writers. We're very grateful to our colleagues from l'Union des écrivaines et des écrivains québécois, or UNEQ, for being willing to come address our group and in English. They are Geneviève Lauzon, the General Director of UNEQ, and Pierre-Yves Villeneuve, the President of UNEQ. In a moment, I will turn the mic over to our moderator, Julie Barlow. Many of you know Julie as the past president of QWF. She is an award-winning journalist and book author who publishes in both English and French, and is a member of both QWF and UNEQ. We are very lucky that she continues to volunteer for us on our Community Relations Committee, which is our primary link to our French language sibling organization. So just some housekeeping, and for one, please do keep yourself muted unless you've been given the floor to talk. If you have any questions, you can either put them on the chat or raise your hand. And in case Julie will, address you and give you the permission to speak. Please don't speak without being asked to do so, just for the audio sounds good and all. And the other reminder I'm going to say is that this meeting is being recorded, and a copy of this will be sent out to all registered participants afterwards. So if you're uncomfortable with this, please turn off your camera. And before we begin, I invite you to give thanks, and remember, we give thanks for the land we live on and the waters that surround us, and we remember that Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, the land upon which QWF has made its home, has been a gathering place for millennia and still remains the unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, the Mohawk people, and other First Nations. We recognize the stories and ongoing oral practices of the indigenous peoples of these lands, which inform our work as writers and literary artists. We remember that we, First Nations, Métis, Inuit, settlers, immigrants, and people brought here against their will, live in this country together. We must never forget our experiences and roles and those of our ancestors in colonization and subsequent injustices, and must strive to live alongside one another in peace, mutual respect, and as allies to steward the lands and waters that sustain us. We must walk gently and respectfully on these lands and commit to investing QWF resources and efforts towards this goal in friendship, esteem, and in the pursuit of justice and equality. And now I'll hand it off to Julie for the rest of the session.
Thanks, Riley. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm happy to see a lot of familiar names and a few familiar faces, so it's great. I'm really excited that we have a great turnout for this event. This is the first time that we are speaking as a QWF publicly about this question, which many of us know as status of the artist, although as we'll see later, the name is not exactly status of the artist, but we're working with that. It's familiar. I want to just reassure everybody, this isn't new for the QWF. This is something we have been working on hand in hand with UNEQ for, and I looked back to my notes, over 2 years now. So Pierre-Yves and Geneviève, I'm not going to give background on the whole presentation they're going to do, is going to give all the background we need, but QWF has been like hand in hand throughout this. So it's not, UNEQ is coming in peace and in partnership with us over this question at the moment, which I think personally is very exciting for writers. But it is a complex question. It will take a while for everybody to get their heads around it, even on the board. The many times we discussed it, it's still quite complex. I have entirely my faith in Geneviève and Pierre-Yves to unpack this for us all. But I just want to warn everybody, it might be a little bit slow tonight. We may need to stop and talk about what's going on. So just to make sure everybody's getting their mind around everything that's going on. So in that spirit, you're welcome to put up your hand and ask questions. I think anytime you want. Geneviève and Pierre-Yves, are you guys comfortable with, I think it's the best way to proceed, because
Yes.
we kind of need to understand what's going on as we go along. in order to get to, where we're going with this. Obviously, Pierre-Yves and Geneviève are used to speaking about this question in French, so let's all slow it down just to make sure we're, everyone's understanding everything. I don't think it's a good idea to slip into French. Many of us will be tempted to do that because, a lot of us are bilingual, but I think, we should keep things as much as possible in English. I'm happy to support and interpret anything if there are issues, if Geneviève and Pierre-Yves, if you need me, or if anybody else, is having difficulty understanding something. As you'll see on the presentation, some of what we have on the PowerPoint remains in French because it's not translated, and that's fine. I think we'll be able to fish it out. We'll be able to figure out what everything is. So on that note, I will hand the evening over to Geneviève Lauzon and Pierre-Yves Villeneuve. Welcome, and we're all ears.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with my director, Geneviève Lauzon. If I may just present myself a bit. So I've been working in books in this beautiful domain since my studies in college. I was working at Renaud-Bré Côte des Neiges as a bookseller. I've worked with Québec Amérique for many events. I've worked in two publishing houses, one as representative with booksellers. So I used to travel all around the province to present new books. I've been a publisher also with HMH Urtubise. And after that, I went on my way. I became an independent. So I was working with lots of publishers for revision, correction, and stuff before becoming a writer myself in 2016. And I write mostly young adult novels. And I became president of the UNEQ in 2023, so a year and a half ago, amidst the crisis that we're going to explain a bit tonight. And Geneviève, if you want to present yourself.
Hi, thank you, Pierre-Yves. My apologize, my English, it's not very good, so I can answer in French maybe tonight. Julie can help me, Pierre-Yves too, thank you. I've been working at UNEQ since 24 years now. I'm a general director since September 2023. So 1 year. I met some of you with writers in Cégep. I recognize some names. So I'm happy to be here and to answer to your question. Thank you.
So Geneviève, on the French side, Geneviève has been there for 24 years now. She was the main contact for any writer who had problems. We used to call UNEQ. She would answer us. She would help us. So she's the memory. So anything technical, she knows what's happening. Like we say, we used to joke, she's the technical specialist. I'm more of the heart. Because she also wrote 2 novels. That's worth saying. So I'm gonna load the presentation. So it's just gonna be easier for everyone to follow. Share screen.
And this presentation will be sent after after tonight. Ça sera envoyé après la soirée. Merci.
Et... All right. Est-ce que là, j'ai mes menus? My menus are all messed up. Okay. So you should be seeing the first page of white and blue. Is it? So that's working? Okay. On va agrandir un petit peu. So we're going to be talking about the new law that's affecting our work. So in French, it's called La Loi sur le statut de l'artiste, which is the act respecting the professional status of artists in the visual arts, film, recording arts, literature, arts and craft, and performing arts. So this is the menu for tonight. So we're going to talk about UNEQ, talk about the law, and talk about the new law and the crisis that we had in the beginning of 2023. So basically, the union is 47 years old. It was founded by a dozen or so writers in 1977, which is the year of our birth, of Geneviève and I. So it was, from the start, UNEQ was a union. It was recognized by law. And in 1990, it became the association, the most representative association in the province. So it's, by law, we have the role to represent every writer. So that happened in 1990. And so, of course, with the two solitudes, our both our lines of work don't usually cross over. So most French writers thought that was only, so UNEQ was for French writers, QWF was for English writers. When the new law passed, there was, so I'm gonna get to the new law eventually, so sorry. My English is gonna get better. Like in an hour or so, it's gonna be really perfect. So just say, like, if you think of l'Union des Artistes, la SARTEC, which are art unions in the movie business for directors, it's the same status for for UNEQ. So in sorry, I'm just getting my all right. So the one of the points of the laws that we work with is the definition of the artist. We know it's going to be something we're going to talk a lot with the publishers, because they're jumping on the occasion with the changing of the laws. The law changed slightly, so it's just a slight change that brings many changes. Basically, what was happening before 2022 was you had two laws, two acts of artists, two LSAs. One was a strong one, and the other one was a weak law. First one was for TV writers, radio, broadcast, music, movie, etc. That was a strong law because artists there have a strong syndicate, a strong union that can bargain with their producers. In the old law, the LSA 32.01, that was the old law, which concerned crafts, literature, and visual artists. We didn't have any bargaining measure with the producers. We couldn't force them to sit down and negotiate a contract. We had to do that individually. So every artist had to work on their own, and l'UNEQ couldn't force the ANEL. On the French side, ANEL is the Association of l'Association Nationale des Éditeurs de Livres, so the Book Publisher Association, which you have an equivalent in the English world. So we couldn't force them to negotiate a basic contract. So the main change in the law, the main change is that the weakest law, the S32.01, was scrapped, and every I think it's on the next slide. It's not on the next slide. I'm gonna go back and forth. Don't worry. So this is the what I'm talking about, the two laws that were existing. So on the left, you had the strong law. So for artists of the scene, it's in representation artists, I think, movie and music, and on the other side, it was so crafts, literature, and visual arts. So we didn't have any bargaining power. It's all been shifted back. We only have one unified law right now. So that's the main change. And okay, I'm gonna go back, follow the plan. So one thing we know, because the publishers told us, is that they're gonna attack, the main point of attack on their side is the nature of the work, the nature of our work, because that's what we see on the screen. It's an excerpt of the law. So literature, what defines literature is creation and translation of original literary works expressed in novel, tales, short stories, dramatic works, poetry, essays, and any written work of a similar nature. So by that definition, we're covering writers, translators, poets, people in dramatic works, so list people writing essays, fiction, nonfiction, but the work of similar nature is a loose definition, meaning that we can include anything, and that's what the UNEQ did in the past year, in the past years, sorry. So we would represent comic artists or youth authors, young adult novelists like me, like myself. But we know that publishers are gonna try to restrain the definition of the artists that are covered by the law, because they're gonna be strict about the definition. So it's gonna be one of the major points in the upcoming negotiations. So that's one of the big changes. And there were also in the last year with the Me Too movements, we know there are problems of sexism and harassment in the artist community, because we usually are isolated and we don't have any recourse. We don't have any power with the producers. So lots of cases happen and people have been caught. And so there's a shift in the law, which Geneviève is going to be in a better position to explain via Julie, who's going to help us with the translation. But we know there are new measures of protection for artists that are being harassed by producers. So that's another big part of the law. Okay, I'm gonna skip over this part. All right. So
Pierre,
before
we've got
we
a question in the chat.
okay, so we have a question. All right.
Do you see?
Okay, see.
Okay, you're good for. Okay.
Okay. Negotiations with whom? Are English language publishers outside of Quebec included? All right. So that's a very good question. So the law, one of the major points, and we had the same discussions with the French writers when the change in the law happened in June 2022, is who's covered by this new law. So basically, it's a question of jurisdiction. So who's covered? It's people who are being published by publishers who are based in the province of Quebec. Those are the ones that are concerned by this law. So myself, I'm published by four publishers in, they're all in Montreal. So my publishers are all concerned by the law. If I sign with a French publisher like Gallimard or whatever, well, this law doesn't have any power outside of the province of Quebec, meaning that there's no effect with Gallimard. They're concerned with French law. I was talking with a comic book artist a year ago, someone who worked with DC Comics, but who's publishing in Europe right now. And he said, who's concerned? How is that going to affect me? Well, it doesn't affect him because he's published by Glénat in Belgium and DC Comics in the United States. So this law doesn't, it's going to concern people who are published by Quebec-based publishing houses. And so whether you're, the interpretation we have is also whether you're a Quebecer, if you're born here, you live here, you work here, and you're publishing with a publisher based in Quebec, whether French or English, doesn't matter, you're covered. If you're someone from outside of the province of Quebec, so a French writer, French as in from France, he's from France, he publishes with someone in Montreal, he's going to be covered with the same basic contract we're going to negotiate. If it's an American publishing with an English publisher in Montreal, he should be covered also, like a temp worker coming in the province of Quebec, who's covered by the, I'm going to say the worker laws. So he's going to have the same protection like CNSST. So it's the same, you get the same package deal.
It depends
But-
the jurisdiction of the contract. If
Yeah.
if the jurisdiction is Quebec, it's covered by that. But if it's another jurisdiction, it's not covered by that.
So the important thing to remember is the publisher has to be based in the province of Quebec. So that's going to be the main change. So if your publisher is outside of Quebec, you shouldn't be concerned. But on our side in the French, I don't know the English literature world as much as the French one. So we have lots of small publishing houses which are in like French Ontario, New Brunswick, and such. So we know they want to be part of the lot because it's going to help them work better. And we see the publishers and the writers, which are on the Ontario side, they do the same tours, the same book fairs at us, like us, so it shouldn't matter. They're going to join the boat because it's going to be easier for them for negotiations, for everything hereafter.
Pierre-Yves, there's another question in the chat
Yes.
quickly. So are English
Um,
language publishers based in Quebec included? That
yes,
yes.
because in the law, there's no language definition. So basically, so I'm gonna go back to the definitions in the law. So there's one article that says that each artistic domain has only one association that can represent the artist. So if you work in TV or movies, the union you have is going to be l'Union des artistes, whether you work in French or English. For artists in the visual arts, it's the RAV, le regroupement des artistes en art visuel. For literature, it's going to be UNEQ, because UNEQ has been recognized in 1990 as the most representative association, the most representative union. So we've been the one union representing writers, whether they're members or not, and whether you speak English or French or publish in English or French, there's only one association that can negotiate contracts, basic clause. It's for everyone. So that's gonna be usually.
So the question, sorry, I just wanted to go back to the original question, which Elise Moser has written back. She's not asking if the publishing houses are covered, but if the publishing houses will be part of the negotiations.
Okay, well, yes, but we're gonna
Not
have
yet.
lots of negotiations because every publishing association is gonna be one negotiation. So we're gonna start with probably the ANEL, that has like 80 houses, 80 companies. After that, there's Sejdes Québécois, which is the big one. After we have all the independents. And we also have on the English side, well, there's the equivalent of l'ANEL, so the Publishers Association. So it's going to be a separate negotiation on this side. But we're going to have experience because since the first one we're gonna attack. Well, I'm saying attack. It's the wrong word from. It's a calque from the French. So the first one we're concerned with is so l'ANEL, Association des éditeurs, and Sejdes, which are they're the two first because they represent together they represent over 80% of publishers in the French world, in Quebec. So they'll be part of it. We're gonna have a basic agreement, and after that we're gonna be able. It's gonna set the basis for because I'm guessing we have the same problems with our contracts, whether it's in French or English.
So, Pierre-Yves, if I can just jump in for a second, I'm not sure everybody in the audience understands what the negotiations like. We're not quite there yet. I know that Elise has some background, so we'll come back to that. But
yes,
just to be clear, for everybody, QWF did do a consultation at UNEQ's request about the kinds of issues that writers were facing and dealing with, and what we felt like we needed, the kind of help we needed in negotiations with publishers. And they were much the same questions as the Francophone writers. It was the same issues. I don't know if you want to talk about those issues specifically. It's basically boils down to no foot to stand on in negotiations for.
yes. Well, it's a power-based negotiation. So, and I'm seeing it right now. I'm negotiating a new contract with one of my publishers, and since we're only one, we don't have any bargaining power. So they're implying the rise in the paper cost and all sorts of economic clause to change stuff in the contract. Get higher. We say the reserve.
Higher reserve on royalties.
Yeah. So higher reserve on the royalties. They
Yeah.
lower royalties. They want so. There's lots of stuff they're gonna try and bargain. And since I'm only one, it's harder to bargain with them. But my bargaining power lies in my book. So either I say yes or no. It's so. But when we're gonna get there with so UNEQ is gonna negotiate by law. It's you can have the association that represents you negotiate basic contracts. So what that means is we're gonna be able to set standards for everyone. What we see in the French side, on the French side, is that so basic royalties are 10%. So that's the common agreement. There's nothing written. It's like everyone agrees it should be 10%. Every few years, there's a book publisher who's gonna send out contracts, and oh, it's 8%. And you have some new writers that don't know how it works, don't know there's a basic standard, and they're gonna sign a contract with 8%. We know in France, it can go as low as 6% per book because the reality is different. Your publishers have a much stronger economic, they have more power there, so they're gonna lower the royalties for their authors. So basically, when we're gonna have an agreement, that means that if we say the standard is 10%, your publisher will not be able to lower that bar. You're gonna start at 10, and you will be able to negotiate higher. If you're the hot stuff of the moment, you say, well, I'm worth 12%. I want to go start my book like from the first sale at 12%. And if you have the arguments to convince your publisher, then it's good. You have the contract, you have the power, your publisher agrees, then you can start at 12. But it will not be able to go lower than the standard. So we have UNEQ has determined, has accumulated stories, points, and so points of negotiations on contracts ranging from royalties, reserves, the length of the contract, the terms, years. The contract should be in effect. So we have tens and dozens and lots of clauses there, and of course we will work to have a better basic contract, because the problem is new writers don't know what's happening. They don't know what they can negotiate, because usually that's not in a contract. I mean, if you don't know what I'm going to say it in French, a clause escalatoire, meaning with when you sell more, you get more royalties, which most authors are going to have. Usually not when you're a first writer, because your book publisher might want to slide one really quick. But so new writers don't know what they can negotiate, and we have experienced writers that don't want to negotiate because they don't want to mess the relation they have with with their publishers, because it's a small place. Everyone knows everyone. We have, like I said, it's we party together, we eat together, and you don't want to mess that relation. But it's a working relation, so there's money involved. So you have to separate the friendship with the publishers and the money side of the business. So that's the hard part, because, well, it's like a small company, and they're gonna say, well, we're like a big family. So that's emotional bargaining. All right. Is is everything clear up to this point? Yeah. Okay. I see Marianne Malte, which is
Whoops, should we
she's
take a
saying
little
yes.
break?
So
Yeah, sorry. Pierre, should we take a little break, put everybody back on the screen, and just take a first round of little questions, or do you
yeah.
want to?
Well, if anyone has question, yeah, sure.
Okay, because it would be nice to see faces if people want to put other hands. I can't see anybody
All
right
right.
now. Okay. So, anybody, any questions about anything so far? Everybody seems to be following. Okay. Okay. Looks like
All
we're
right.
good.
Okay, I'll try. I'll keep going. Don't hesitate if you have any questions, or if my English sucks too bad. I'll try to be I'll try to be better. All right, so All right, so these were the two main laws we had up to June 2022. So on one side, we could have collective negotiations, and on the other side, what we had before, we could not have any collective agreements. So we had individual contracts without any safety net. We know we're one of the poorer professions. There weren't any appeals. The appeals were under common law, and so there was no revision mechanism in the law, so that changed. So we're gonna have collective negotiations just like any other artist union. We'll be able to set basic minimum contracts. We'll be able to build a social safety net for writers. And we'll also have, so what I was saying about harassment cases, so we'll be able to use le tribunal administratif du travail, so the administrative, can't remember the name, sorry.
Administrative Labor Tribunal. I don't know what the translation is.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you, Judy. So the Administrative Labor Tribunal is going to be will be coming handy on that side.
Pierre-Yves, we have two little questions.
Yes, I'm gonna.
Two little questions. Forgive me. There's one. This concerns publisher-author contracts and hence does not affect indie publishing efforts, but I don't know what indie publishing efforts are.
L'auto-édition, édition indépendante, auto-édition. And no, it's not concerned publisher author because you don't have contract when you edit publish yourself. You don't have contracts, or so you're not concerned by the negotiation. You don't bargain with you.
So yeah, you have three ways to publish books. So either you're with a professional publisher. So that's when you have a contract with that publisher. I'm working with Les Malins, Montreal, publish most of my novels there. We have contracts for each and every books. I could be using l'auto-édition, self-publishing. Self-publishing would be, so you have a company and you hire their services to make your book. So I'm gonna pay X $1,000. They're gonna do the revision. They're gonna fix the book, the visual, etc. And they're gonna take care of printing. I need to buy some copies of my book, so that's self-publishing. Or I can do it all by myself, so that's indie publishing. So in the case of indie publishing, so independent authors, who do not have publishers, you're not concerned by the effects of the law because you don't have a working contract except with yourself.
The other question is maybe the big question, and I don't know if you want to deal with it right now or we'll put it off, but that is, how is it welcomed by the publishers? Shall we?
It's, well, no, I think it's a good place to start to answer. Like I said, I've been working a long time in the book business on both sides, either on the publishing side or so I've been a writer since 2016. I have lots of friends, lots of working relations, and during the last book fairs, I went there not as a writer, but as the president of UNEQ. I was making rounds just talking to writers and talking to the publishers. And most of them are welcoming the new law because bad publishers are worse for them, because one bad publisher is going to make a bad rep for every publisher. And that's going to happen if you follow the news. When we had one, I think 6 or 7 years ago, who was a recognized publisher, and he went into self-publishing. So he was charging young authors who didn't know the business, and that made the news because he wasn't doing his job properly. So, and when you have one who messes up his job, well, automatically after that, what people see in the news is that every publisher is bad. So what they need, what they want with this law is it's going to simplify their lives because, well, on two parts, it's going to clear up the publishing side of the business. The bad ones are going to disappear by themselves because they won't be able to carry on. But it's also gonna be better with the relations they have with the authors, because I was talking with a publisher and he was saying with the new laws, and authors are they're more reading their contracts than ever before. And he says it's gonna take me like an hour and a half to answer the author who has many questions, and sometimes they don't understand, even though I'm trying to explain to them what's happening, what's the reality, how is this happening. And we're gonna stick on some particular clause that doesn't have a real effect, or it's so much theoretical that it doesn't really matter sometimes. But we're gonna hold it with our heart, and he's going to explain it because he's a great guy and he wants the authors to be happy. But he says also it's going to help them because we're going to have certain clauses that are going to be standardized. I'm sorry. Standardized.
Standardized.
Thank you. My tongue's going
It's
everywhere.
okay. The same question, the sub-question, what about online publishers?
Well,
Contract,
I'm
they're
gonna say,
publishing.
Geneviève, if you want to jump in.
Pour tout format, en fait, c'est un éditeur qui ne publie qu'en numérique est tout autant concerné qu'un éditeur qui publie dans d'autres formats. Le format n'a pas d'incidence.
Any author who publishes in any format, I assume, Geneviève, that means with a contract, you know, an actual publisher who publishes online in an ebook only, it's the same deal.
Thank you.
Yes. I probably think so. Marianne, I don't know if you're thinking about Amazon services, something like that, because we know it's a new way of publishing. So I think it falls in the category of self-publishing or indie publishing.
Yes.
Okay. The other question was what makes a bad publisher? I think you alluded to that. I mean, it's
gonna be a bad publisher won't be paying royalties on time.
Yeah.
Your book won't be
refuse to
available.
negotiate a contract.
Yeah. I mean, we have all kinds of examples. Some won't. They're gonna force you to publish always with them. Have an exclusive clause for your next books. There's I know one who had, instead of giving out raises in percentage, he was going by the quarter. So like a quarter at a time, you sell 1,000 books, then you make 25 more cents. And after 10,000 books, you make 25 more cents. So that was a creepy way of getting royalties. And he would extend the contract with like revision clause and have the author charge. And so he would trap his writers in the contract, not letting them get away because they were unhappy. He wasn't doing the job. So you have, I mean, there's lots of we're writers, we can dream new ways for a bad publisher to exist. But most publishers do a very good job. Most publishers want to be better and want their writers to be happy, and they want the books to sell and their writers to be only writing because they want to publish more. So that's the some writers, when this 2 years ago when this came into effect, they were thinking we're going to be like fighting on the public place, and it's going to be a zero-sum negotiation, like either we win or they lose, or vice versa. So no, it's going to be, what we need to do is find contracts that are better for writers, that are respecting the size and the growth of the publishers, because obviously you can have a small publisher who publishes like 8 books a year. He's not going to be in the same place as Quebecois, who publishes 120 books a year and more. So we're gonna have to define what are the different scale for every publisher. Why is it not standard? What is not standard?
I don't know what contract.
The
Oh, this
the
why is
contracts.
yeah.
Well, because right now, up until June 2022, they didn't have to be. So we had no power to force a publisher to have the same contract as his neighbors. Which means if I showed you my contracts, my first one was like 4 pages, and my last one is like 20 pages long. And so you have some, and my first publishers was saying like, I'd like to have a contract as simple as possible. It would be a handshake, and everyone's going to be happy. But a handshake doesn't define every situation we're going to run into. It's going to be harder than that. And so either it's like a marriage. So it's the first year is going to be great, and it's down the line what's going to happen. What's going to happen when you have option on your books? What's going to happen when you have a producer that wants to make it a TV series, or a movie, or a podcast, or your book doesn't do very well with this publisher, but you have more ideas, and you want to take back the rights to make it with another publisher, and first one doesn't want to let it go. So you need articles in your contract to so that there's a clear way of proceeding for the end of the contract. So
It's worse than a marriage, because when you get married, you can divorce, but
yeah,
not with a publisher.
Yeah, that's quite true. You can't get out of your contract sometimes, and in the conditions, there's something in the contract that's, we've had this situation with contracts where we couldn't go forward because we couldn't get around a clause in a contract that was holding us back. So
yeah, but a good contrast you're gonna have clauses at the end for reprinting, or for getting out because the publisher doesn't want to reprint, or he wants to do a reprint but you don't want to do a special new edition or something. So there's lots of things to define in our contracts. Can we be afraid of losing a contract if we put our foot down? Well, yes, right now we can, because we don't have any bargaining power. So if a publisher would propose an 8% royalties without an upgrade if you sell more, and he doesn't want to negotiate, it's a yes or no answer. Well, you have to make a choice. And after that, if we have an agreement for every writer, we could say, all right, well, it's not going to start at 8, it's going to start at 10, and there's going to be a specific point for a salary raise. So royalties are going to go higher if you make 5,000 sales or 10,000 sales, you can upgrade, or if you have the bargaining power after that. I have some colleagues which are very good sellers. They're best sellers. So their contracts, when they start selling, they start at 15% royalties. And I have a friend who goes to 30% royalties because he talked to his publisher, and the publisher was open, and the guy's an entrepreneur. So he said, look, I know I can make this. I know we can go higher, and I'm going to sell the book for you, because he's going to make tons of activities. And the publisher said, well, it's my interest to make more money, and you're going to make more money. So everybody's going to be happy. But some publishers won't agree to that. So the only bargaining power is saying yes or no right now. And after that, well, you could say yes or no anyway, but you're gonna have a minimum clause. And it's the parallels always with the movie business. It's like having a newcomer. So you have basic pay for new actors, but if you're Ryan Reynolds, you don't get minimum pay. You have an agent that's going to negotiate, and he's going to say, well, I'm Deadpool. So, all right, you're going to start twice the normal pay, or 3 times, because that's going to be the bargaining after that. But you're going to have a minimum.
So, Pierre, we have a few more questions. I think you just
Yes.
alluded to the question about an agent, and my understanding is that this in essence doesn't replace an agent, but it does set conditions that make it possible for writers to get basic, decent contracts. That, you know, in other cases are you only get that through an agent, right? So this is kind of it's kind of a replacement for an agent. I think we should maybe just leave the agent question aside. It's not.
Well, it's going to be partly a replacement, because we're going to have like it's the basic contract, but you can negotiate after with or without the agent. I know agents are way more, I'm going to say popular, or you have more agents in the English and on the English side. We're moving towards agents on the French side, but usually the publishers on the French side of literature in Quebec, the publishers would be the standard agent. So we would concede the rights to the publishing house, and they would be able to negotiate with other publishers across the sea, across the world, or even with TV producers or movie producers or the theater world. So they would be the agent, the contact for everything. And one thing we'll be working on is reminding our publishers that they are book publishers. They're not agents, because they usually, what happens is they're gonna sit on the rights, hoping for a big success with the books, and for some producer to come back, or for the author to make the rounds of the producers, develop something, and when it pays off, they're there to collect the cash. So what we're saying to them right now is, your specialty, what you do best, is making books. You're not TV agents, you're not movie agents. We're gonna have, if they want the option, we're gonna sell the option to them. They'll have a limited time to use that option to find a project, and if they can't, the writer's gonna take back the rights on his work for the adaptation.
So,
but that's some theoretical problem for later. But it's something we need to think about.
So Elise Moser has a question about AI. I'm not sure we want to go into that quite yet. I know you guys haven't. We've been at this for an hour now, and I know you still have quite a bit of
Well,
things you've explained?
it's
Do you wanna
actually a
talk-
good,
Okay.
yeah, it's a good question. So, will you be protecting us from AI? How will you negotiate about technologies we don't have yet?
Est-ce que je
Well,
peux répondre en français?
Si tu veux y aller.
Oui, OK. Actuellement, dans les contrats, on voit que les droits sont cédés sur tous les supports connus ou à découvrir.
Okay.
À
Right now, I have to go sentence by sentence. Right
vas-y.
now, in the context that we see, they cover all formats and future formats as well, right? Yeah,
Oui,
that's what we're seeing.
support média,
Media,
all
electronic image,
media, all supports,
Yeah.
connus ou à découvrir.
To
Déjà, on pourrait limiter les droits accordés juste aux médias connus. Déjà,
Okay.
ça, c'est un minimum.
We could already start to limit just to the technology that's known, which would cut off the clause that takes care of everything in the future. while
En
possible.
plus,
Yes.
on pourrait négocier des comptes qui empêchent l'éditeur de téléverser les œuvres dans des logiciels de generative AI pour éviter donc la récupération par les bots, par les machines des œuvres. Donc ça, c'est d'autres conditions qui pourraient être négociées dans les ordres.
We could introduce clauses that prevent editors from being able to put works into AI to train generative AI, and these are clauses that you would consider introducing. Okay, they're good. It's good. Yeah, I didn't think at all about that, but okay.
Yeah, if I may add,
sure.
Since the publishing system in Quebec is highly subsidized by the government, we already have clauses with so the writer has to be human because he needs an address. We have to sign a document for our publishers, for the SODEC, la Société de développement économique, non, Société de développement économique culturel.
Des entreprises culturelles.
Des entreprises culturelles. So for cultural companies. So there's already something like that that guarantees that the books that are published by recognized publishers in Quebec they need to be made by a human being. So a book publisher cannot go and hire an AI to make books. Wouldn't be recognized. You could have. We know on Amazon you can find some AI books, but I'm also on the board of Copybec, which is the agency.
It's the French French equivalent of access copyright or
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And they had a case of some guy trying to register like 400 books at a time, which were all AI books. But there are already accidental clauses we have in the publishing world to protect us against AI. That being said, we could go further with because we've seen some publishers in Montreal that use AI for the book covers. So they generated pictures. One was accidental, one was voluntary. Two actually were voluntary. And like Geneviève said, we have to protect the works from, I mean, if I want to opt out of a system that's going to feed the machine, I want to know about it. You have OpenAI and stuff that are feeding off what they can find without paying for the use of the books. Well, we should have clauses that protect us from feeding the beast with the help of our publishers.
Yeah.
And it's hard to define because I don't know if you work with the program Antidote, so there's an English equivalent of Antidote, English model. And I'm in contact with the owner to better understand there's a new, we use it a lot because it's a great corrector. It's a Grammarly, and it finds everything we can't find because our eyes are tired. And they have a new AI module to recreate or better phrase what we write. And it's going to propose like 40 formulations, but it's going to take the top 3. And I'm writing to him to better understand how it's working, because it's something that can benefit the publishing world, but we need to understand how they use the text that we feed it. The only thing I did find is that on the web version of Antidote, they keep the text for a period of 24 hours. After that, it's destroyed. So it's still kind of it's a gray area, but we should have clause. I mean, if you do not want to have like AI generated covers, or a simple revision made by AI, you should be able to have that in your contract. So that's clauses that are yet to be defined. I've tried. I have a scheduled call with my publisher to talk about that. My lawyer tried to get the same clause with Sojdice/Québécois, and they refused, saying, well, we don't use AI for this book, so we don't need a clause. Meaning they might use it for something else. So it's something that, I mean, it's a combat that's for every artist. We know the WGA on the United States side, it was something very important to them, that they could choose how and when they used AI, so it wouldn't be imposed by the producers. So that was a big big point in the strike they had last year. So it's going to be part of the negotiations in the ongoing years. I'm sure we're going to talk about it next time we'll meet.
Linda Leith is asking a question about the standard advance on royalties that UNEQ is looking for in publishing contracts.
There's nothing standard with the advance. It's gonna vary greatly from one publisher to another. Small publishers don't have any leverage to pay some advance. It can go to well, since I've been working with a lawyer for my contracts, she developed she has a small formula to help us calculate what would be a fair advance for the books I write. So her formula is she needs the price of the books, the first print, how many prints there are, and she calculates 50% of the royalties of the first print. So it's gonna vary from $500 to $150 to $3,000, depending on the book, the project, and on the publishing house. And sometimes they're gonna. It's not even a discussion point. There's one contract. We took the info. It was like $3,000, and the publisher said, "Yeah, sure, okay, it's fine." And for others, it's going to be way lower because they don't have the money or whatever the reason. So we have to develop something that's going to be fair for the publishers, being small, medium, large companies, because the smaller one won't be able to give out the cash, but the big ones, they have the cash flow to pay some advances. So yeah, that's an important, very important clause to write in the future and to negotiate with the publishers. And like I said, when we we work so long on our books. If we don't get any advance, if we don't have royalties that are standardized, well, that are not high enough so we can make a living. And if the reserve on the royalties are too high and we only get paid 2 years down the line, it doesn't work for us. So we have to find a fair way to work so that we can write more and publish more books. And that's the hard. It's something that's hard because you know the price of the paper and all the economic stuff they're gonna say to us to justify not putting more money. They want to make books, but we need money to live, so and to write.
So do you want to, we could take a break from the questions and continue on, I think, with that. It's already
Sure.
8:30. I don't know, are you guys good for going on? You know, originally we were gonna go till 9, but we started about a half an hour late, so. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still good.
Okay.
All right. So I think I talked about this.
Yeah.
All right, so the problems under the old law, yeah, talked mostly about it. So we had lots of disparity, inequity. If you were a bestseller, you didn't have problems with your contract. Well, usually in the French world, if you're a bestseller, you have an agent who's going to negotiate for you, so you have a better contract, and that's a wheel going on. Richer get richer. Also, you have, well, if you have an agent, you don't have any unacceptable practices in your contract. UNEQ didn't have any intervention power. So yeah, sure, we would hire lawyers, send out some letters, but now it's going to be a true union with the same power of any other union. If you have a problem with your contract, if the publisher tries to go lower, you can have so we could intervene in favor of the writer, and we'll be able to bargain collectively to have better conditions, better contracts. So it's something that we do. It's an ongoing process anyway with the government for anything that's subsidized. And it's going to be, so the way it works, it's the collective agreements are going to be for a period of 3 years. So every 3 years, we're going to be negotiating a new agreement. So it's going to come back way more often. All right, so this I've covered most of it. So this document, we're gonna send it to you, so you'll be able to read it. If you have any questions, Geneviève is gonna be able to answer those. And so, all right, so I'm gonna go back in to the crisis we had in 2022, early 2023. So basically what happened is that, so we're going to be functioning probably like a more classic union. Well, of course, we're all independent workers. So we're not in a shop. It's harder to find out what's the overall salary. So when the law passed, what happened was that like a couple of weeks after, we had an Assemblée Générale, general meeting of the members. And so we took a resolution to have a union fees, union dues, that would be 2.5% for members and 5% for non-members on royalties paid by the publishers. So meaning if you're working you're working as a writer, you have contracts for this and that. You go into schools or libraries. So that money is not concerned. The only money that would be concerned would be the royalties. And so what happened was that there was a bad comprehension. People thought everything was going to be up for grabs, as they said, for union dues. And there wasn't any limit on the contracts. So it would have been every active contract would have paid a portion of the royalties for the union. Meaning that a writer who started his career in 1980 would be paying with this book or with the new book coming out next year. So people were angry, and we had only about 40% in that meeting. So they didn't think it was fair because people didn't know it was happening and there was a breach of procedure. So basically we went back, explained to the members what was happening. We explained the law, union laws in Quebec, how everything is working, how it was affecting us, how it would be affecting us. And it was, it became, and during the spring of 2023, sorry, it wasn't good on the French side of literature. People were insulting each other. It was a really hard time. And the proposition in the special general meeting on March 29th, so we presented again this the proposal for interim union dues, and it was rejected because, again, people didn't understand what was happening, and they were so, even though some were for the union, for the change in the law, they were against something that they did not understand. And that's a valuable, I mean, it's obviously fair. So we had to go back to the drawing board and explain to the members what was happening, what we were going to be doing, and how it would affect them. So for the last year and a half, we've been explaining to members what was happening and how the law was coming into effect. Last year, we had a vote to affiliate with the FNCC, which is la Fédération Nationale des Cultures et Communications, with la CSN. So
These are
that way,
these are major unions, just so people understand.
yes, it's the oldest union center in Canada, the la CSN, and they have like tens of thousands of workers with them. And so the affiliation with the FNCC basically is going to help us to get our way at a lower cost, because UNEQ might be bigger than Quebec Writers Federation, but we're still small. We have 8 employees. We have a limited budget. And with lawyers, it's going to cost a lot. We know how that works. So la FNCC is helping us out because they have counselors, they have specialists, they can make studies, they can help us communicate with our members, mobilize our members if we have something we need, if we need the physical presence. They helped us with general meetings because they have rooms, they have technicians. So we had in a couple of months back, we had a new general meeting with them, and we were, I think, 300 members across the province. We had 2 locations, one in Montreal, one in Quebec, plus members via Zoom. So it's a lot of help, and Geneviève is constantly talking to them. And right now we are we're making a new consultation to better know the members, because we have lots of floating numbers in the literature world. I mean, nobody knows how many writers there are in Quebec, so that's a problem. We don't know how much money we make, which is another problem. So they're gonna help us know our members, know who is writing, where they are. So we're having something like a census, which is being made, and they are also helping us find out what are the key problems with the contract of our members, what they want, what they fear, what they will like with the new agreements. So it's a lot of work, and something I hope the English writers are gonna be able to participate also.
So that brings us to the question, were Anglophone authors implicated in the UNEQ union due issue? I was there.
Yes, because the law. So because of the law,
Oh, I see.
UNEQ
Yeah.
is
Sorry, go ahead.
so okay. So the way I'll take the 2 last questions, which go hand in hand. So are Anglophone authors implicated in the UNEQ due issues? Actually, with the union laws and the RAND formula, the way it works is that since the collective agreements are gonna concern every writer being member or not. So meaning that if you publish with whether you're a member or not, and you publish with a publisher that has signed an agreement with UNEQ, you benefit from the work we did. So we raise the let's say the royalties to 15%. Basic royalties are now 15%. Well, whether you're a member or not, you benefit from that agreement. Everyone would get 15%. So with the RAND formula, it means that every worker in the same unit gaining the advantages has to contribute to the fight. You do not have to be a member of the union. By law, no one can force you to be the member of a union. That's something that you make by choice. So if you have, there are teachers in the room, you know that being a member of your teacher union, that's a choice that you can make. If you're unhappy with your union, you can choose to leave, but you still have to contribute to the union, because they fight for you anyway, whether you're a member or not. And that's written in the law. It's that the association has to represent every artist in that domain, whether they are members or not. So the question is also, do all writers have to be members? So of course, no, you don't, but all writers will have to contribute. And with the affiliation with the FNCC, which is a major key point in this discussion, is that it's gonna bring the cost as low up as possible, because if we need lawyers or communications expert, it's something that can rise quickly. The cost can be very, very high. Being with the FNCC, those costs are fixed. So it's going to cost a lot, but it's going to cost a lot less than if we didn't have them. And we needed 1, 2, 3, 4 lawyers because we have problems with X numbers of contracts, and we won't know year after year the number of problematic contracts. We don't know how many we're going to have, so we cannot estimate how much it's going to cost in lawyer costs. So the affiliation is going to bring the cost back to, I think it's under 200 grand a year, which is a lot of money. I agree. But it's also a way that we can predict our cost and what we need from the members. So we'll be able to get those dues as low as possible. But it's still an equation that needs to be defined because, like I said before, we do not know how many active writers there are, and we don't know how much we make collectively. So as soon as we're going to have agreements, there are dues that are going to start coming in. We'll be able to know what are the total royalties for the writers in Quebec.
So there are 2 more questions here. Maybe the second question first. So we will pay dues calculated on royalties from Quebec publishers only. Will we pay dues collected on royalties? Is that?
So the first one is you can.
I went to the second one because it was more, yeah.
Only in Quebec and only if the publisher are concerned by a collective agreement.
Yes, meaning that, like, as of right now, nobody pays dues because we don't have any agreements yet. As soon as we're gonna have an agreement with, let's say the first one is Lanel, well, every writer with Lanel, meaning 80-some publishers, are gonna be concerned, starting with probably the next contracts. Like I said, the first proposition didn't have any restrictive measures. And people said it wasn't fair because for the contracts, let's say, well, my first contract was in 2016. UNEQ wasn't there when I negotiated. Why should I be paying any dues for a contract they didn't bargain with me? All right, that's a fair argument. So probably, and it's gonna have to be discussed, there's gonna be a proposal on that, but we could say, well, the dues are gonna start like 1st of January 2025. Any contract signed after that is gonna be concerned by the union dues. Before that, you're okay. So it's gonna be one negotiation group at a time. So Lanel first, Sage Dice, eventually we'll have the Quebec publishers. And when we have a signed agreement with them, only then is it gonna begin. So hope I explained that.
So the previous question was regarding people who pay union dues to TWUC, which is the Writers Union of Canada. So there is the QWF here, and then there's a Canadian union that represents writers.
Well, there's 2 different things in there because you have there's membership dues and there's union dues. So let's say I'm gonna take just UNEQ. So I have to pay $150 a year to be a member of UNEQ. So this won't change. I have to pay to be a member, which gives me services. I have lawyer assistance. I have lots of services from UNEQ. And after that, you have the union side, which is going to be the protection of the negotiation, etc. Anything regarding contracts and the defense of writers. it's going to be supported by the union dues. So it's so you have to look at it like this. And we know that lots of writers are part of many associations. I myself am part of, I think, 3 associations, one local, and there's l'Association des auteurs jeunesse du Québec, so the young writers, no, writers for for kids in Quebec. So people being member of multiple association is something that we need to think about, because we cannot be we can't pay every association as a member, as a writer. I don't have $1,000 to pay out for every association. So it's something we're gonna have to think about how it's gonna work, but it's still early on. So I don't have a solution for you right now. And also because the union of, so the Writers Union of Canada, it's on another jurisdiction level. So you have a membership there, but you probably don't have union dues, because it's this law is unique in the world. And it's the first time that writers are protected by law. Writers as in novelists. You have other types of writing that is protected. Elsewhere, if I'm thinking of writers as in movie writers or TV writers, but for the book form of writing, there's no union that exists as a true union. It's the first time in history that book writers are protected. So that's the only place that you can have a union due that's taken off the royalty.
So the next question is regarding, the question of beginning an English language segment as the negotiations go forward. Do you want to keep explaining the rest, or do you want to address that right away?
Well, I'll take the question, and after that, we can continue.
Okay.
So this one is UNEQ thinking of beginning an English language segment as the negotiations go forward. No, but it's the QWF is going to be participating with us for the negotiations. So that's very, very important, because I have to use the word association. They're the union. They're the ones that know you best. So we need to work together to go forward. But yes, you have union dues to pay to UNEQ, because we have the negotiations, the contract, the lawyers and stuff to take care of. And well, it is, if a writer doesn't want to be a member of UNEQ, yes, you would be paying probably a higher rate as a non-member. Like I said, we need to think of a way to have multiple memberships coexist, so it won't cost us too much. And we also, so one part of workers I didn't mention is illustrators. So you have writers, translators, whether you have adult or kids novelist, French, English writers, and illustrators are represented by UNEQ, because illustrators do have a double representation, like with the RAV, le regroupement des artistes en art visuel. Those who are in galleries, museum, etc., they have the RAV as a union association, and they just signed their first agreement with foreign museums. But when working with book publishers, it's going to be UNEQ, which represent them. So I know it might be confusing. It might be, it's a hard structure, but it's how the law works. And actually, we will be needing input from the English writers with the UNEQ, because we cannot be working separately. It worked in the past, but we'll be needing you on board, and we're gonna start having a reflection about the way UNEQ works, because like I said, there's gonna be translators. They have their own association. English writers, you have QWF. Illustrators, they have EQ, which is Illustration Québec. So we're gonna have to get them on board, not without building a new branch each time, but we need your input to go forward. All right,
Okay.
so I'll
Speaking of
be
going forward.
yes. So again, I hope I'm clear enough for you. If not, please write to us. Sometimes easier. It's going to be easier to explain certain points after that. So we had, and so going back to 2022, we voted union dues. It we had a false start, and the decision was canceled in March, and after that, all of the board resigned, all of the board members. I was the youngest member, the one who had been there for 4 months, and I decided to build a new team of board members, and we've been working together for over a year and a half, so everything's going great. But it's a lot of work to explain everything to go forward. But slowly we are convincing people of the value of what we are doing. Okay, I'll go over this. All right, so what's coming in the future? So we have, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, we are working with the FNCC to make a broad survey. And I think I'm gonna ask Geneviève to talk about the survey, because she's the one that's working on it. She knows it better.
But it's not only a survey. The survey is the first step only, but it's a big step. Julie, Pierre-Yves, je peux vous demander, il se fait tard. Je
Ouais,
peux
ouais,
une
ouais,
autre
vraiment, parce que mais je suis pas, I'm not a professional interpreter, so little pieces, okay, Geneviève?
OK.
Okay.
Donc, on va lancer une grande consultation qui va se développer en 3 étapes. Un sondage qui va être lancé dès le début du mois de novembre. En fait, ça va être 3 petits sondages jusqu'en décembre.
Okay, I think everybody can see on this that you're going to be launching a big consultation process with 3 steps beginning in November. Survey broad. Yeah, okay. Do you want me just to explain in English what they are? Do you want to?
En fait, toute la consultation va porter sur 3 lines of questioning. Who, what, and how or how many. So the survey, the 3 sections of the survey will be about these 3 lines of questioning. The second steps, it's a workshop, 2 days in February, 1 day in person and 1 day online. And the final step, it's a get together and a special assembly for the members, but it will be the same presentation because it will be the presentation of the proposition. Ça se dit-tu, Julie? Est-ce que
Absolutely. You don't need me.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're good.
And we have 3 propositions, like the 3 lines of questioning. The first proposition is to the statute of UNEQ. The second proposition is the list of demands for the bargaining. And the third propositions, it's the financial contribution, the dues.
Yes. You good? Okay, it's fine. I maybe I'll just step back and make sure like these are the 3 questions that that UNEQ is going to be trying to fish out in the process of the different stages of consultation. And having witnessed your first explanation at the meeting we had in, wow, I don't remember when
June.
June. It's a very very well laid out, quite complex but organized process that you're going to go about consulting members on these issues, because basically everything is sort of on the table right now, right?
Yes.
That's the important thing to understand. Okay.
And we hope that the QWF will help us to pour aller chercher les auteurs anglophones, avoir des réponses en anglais. And we think about the translate of the survey.
Okay.
So we have to finish the French version before and after we're gonna translate for the English language. Right.
So just to clarify, there will be a separate process with the English language. We will be given the survey and have the workshops, and the same consultation process will happen in English as well. Okay, good. I didn't know that, so that's new information. So very good.
Yeah, and
okay.
As you can see, in the line of questioning, we have to look at our statute and bylaws, because we have to get them to rewrite them according to the new law. We're gonna have help with the from the FNCC, and as of the membership, UNEQ has a strange membership, and right now about just anybody can be a member if they have published a book. There's lots of categories. It's really strange, and there's no geographical restrictions, meaning that if Stephen King would like to be a member of UNEQ, he could be. He just have to make to pay his dues and fine, because he's a writer. He has 2 books or more, and he's published with recognized publishers. So we have some strange thing that happened over the year that we need to address. So we have about 20 some writers that are working on those workshops, and after that there's going to be more work with more writers to address some questions and have a draft for the members.
The Writers Union, on travaille avec la Writers Union of Canada.
You are working with them directly with the Writers Union?
Sur des federal,
okay.
Notamment le Copyright Act en ce moment, avec Access Copyright. L'UNEQ fait partie de la CDEC, the Coalition for la diversité des expressions culturelles, et le Copyright Working Group, okay. Avec Access Copyright et the Writers Union of Canada. Ils font partie de nos listes d'envoi. Ils connaissent mais ça concerne moins leurs membres parce que beaucoup de leurs membres sont out of Québec. Donc, peu concernés par ce qui se passe ici.
Okay, just in case no one understood, but I think everybody got what you said. They're working closely with UNEQ with access copyright on the copyright coalition. What's the name of the group? The
Copyright Working Group.
working group. Okay. But of course, the members in TWAC aren't concerned by what's going on necessarily in Quebec, although I'm guessing they will be inspired by what's going on in Quebec eventually. Right. So
Another question is,
oh, I
so
see that.
Lise is saying that they are more of a professional association than QWF. So lots of Quebec English writers are represented by TWUC.
It's a good question. I don't know, but I'm not a member of TWAC right now. But Elise would know what the membership roughly is. But yes, Quebec writers will tend to be, members of both the Quebec, but they're very different organizations. Very, very different spirit. And that's a question that we'll have to discuss more at length with you. I don't think now is the time to do it, but about the means and what we can and can't do at the QWF, what kind of means we have.
I talked with John Degan, the director, the general director of the TWUC.
Yeah.
And il sait ce qui se passe. He knows
He knows what's going on, and he's aware. Okay, he's aware of the issue. Very good. Okay. All right. Sean, we have a question again.
Marianne saying that she has to go. Linda also. Thank you both for being here.
I feel people dropping off a little bit. We, do have a little more time. I don't know how you are feeling.
We're practically at the end.
There you go. But if there's some questions that, we could potentially open up the
Absolutely
chat and get back into the thing. But it looks like people are signing off a little bit. But I mean, I'm happy to, take another few minutes. If people want to ask questions live, we can go back to, do you want to wrap up with your conclusions here? I think we've skipped a little.
Yeah, yes. So so this fall we're gonna have the big survey to get a clearer head of what the who the authors are, who the writers are, what are the what's working, what they want, what they need with the negotiations. So it's fine-tuning because Geneviève has been working with UNEQ for 24 years now. She is the one who sees the most contract for writers, probably in the whole province, because she sees them, she can comment them. We're gonna discuss them together, not me personally, but her with the writers to help them out. So it's like our own service of she's the specialist of contracts, so she already knows what were the major problems with the contracts. So the survey is going to help us fine-tune those problems that need to be fixed, and after that we'll again go back to work to have in French we say cahier des charges, so to prepare ourselves for the upcoming negotiations with the publishers. So knowing exactly what will be discussed and what we can negotiate and what's the point that we say this is acceptable or this is not acceptable for us, what we need to fight for, what we can drop. So the negotiations with the two big association of publishers should resume in spring of 2025, hoping for the first collective agreements in 2027. And like I mentioned, after that, we'll be able to add every independent publisher individually, because they won't be probably what's going to be probably happening is that the small independent won't want to negotiate alone. We've seen a wave of publishers joining L'Anel because they don't want to have the cost of negotiation alone, because lawyers, again, with existing collective agreements, they'll probably say, well, that's the basis for literature in Quebec. So I'm going to jump in with this collective agreement. There are mechanisms to jump on board. So 40X publishers are going to join. And parallel to that, we'll have the English side, so the publishers, the English publishers, sorry, that we'll have to negotiate with. And same thing, so we're gonna start with the English Publishing Association, and if there are independents, we'll talk to them one at a time. If they want, they'll be able to join the association. And the way it works also with the agreements is that a publisher that has signed an agreement cannot drop out of the agreement. So even though you have a publisher in the English Publishing Association that's there, signs the agreement, a year after he says, well, I'm not happy, I'm dropping out of the association for X reason, he still has the agreement that he has to respect. So that's an important point. And well, in the law, if you take the time to read the law, the law doesn't speak of publishers, it speaks of producers. So who are the producers? Well, on one part, you have publishers, which produce books, but you also have distributors. So any event, big event organizers, we can go and talk to them. Like there's l'Association des Salons du Livre, which is the association with the 9 big book fairs in Quebec, like the Salons du Livre de Montréal, Salons du Livre de Québec, Salon international du Livre de Québec, Côte-Nord, etc. So we can talk with them, negotiate with them, and have an agreement for the participation of writers in book fairs, because it's another place where we have discrepancies. We have different salaries for animations and interviews and such. So we need to talk to them to have something that's more interesting for everybody. And we see it already. We have some writers contacting us, writing to us, saying they have problems. They need to have their contracts upgraded, and they have trouble with that because, again, they're alone, they're isolated. So the organizers can say, well, if you don't accept that, I'm gonna take someone else. It's as simple as that for them. So it goes to like you can see the book fairs, the festival, libraries, the booksellers also that like to invite us and pay us in smiles. So we have lots of points, many people that we need to talk to make sure that writers are being paid their fair due. But for the union dues, sorry, even though we say we want to talk with the book fairs, the festival, etc., unless we have an agreement, a collective agreement that is signed, there is no union due that is being paid. So we could talk for, I don't know, well, if we do all the publishers and after that we say, okay, in 2030, we're going to talk with l'Association des Salons du Livre. Well, unless until 2030, you won't have any due to pay for any animation or activity in book fairs. So that's I think that paints a broad picture of what I was supposed to say tonight. Like I said, I hope I was clear enough. I'm sorry for my my English. I don't have many occasions to practice.
You did very well, Pierre-Yves, and
Thank you.
that's fine, and bravo. We have lots of good comments, lots of people thanking you for the information, who found it helpful, so that's great. I don't know, does anybody have any last questions? We still have a few people with us. You can stick them in the chat, or we could take down the screen share and see if anybody wants to put up their hand. I want to make sure everybody got a chance to ask everything they want. It was a lot of information to absorb in one evening. I think you did a great job.
Yeah, and there's some stuff I did not talk about because it's still too early in all of the process, like the social safety net.
Yeah.
On the 12th of August, I was in a bookstore talking to some colleagues, and someone was saying, well, if you want me on board, you need to have everything presented, going from the union dues to social safety net, the insurance and stuff, and blah 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 blah. I said, man, it's way too early. We gotta start and go one point after the other because there's so many variables that we don't know. We cannot develop an insurance plan for writers if we don't know how many we are. That's as basic as that. But after we're gonna have the agreements, we'll be able to go that way, have a plan that's workable. If we see, maybe we'll be doing stuff with other artist unions like l'Union des Artistes. They have virtual consultation with doctors that are open to members. I think they did that like a year ago. It was super popular. So we can probably join forces and offer something that's interesting. And it's something that we need to talk to members about because there's so many different situations, so many personal endeavors and problems and health problems that are way more complicated, that if we talk to each other and people are going to say, well, my partner is paralyzed and he needs something from the government and I can get on board, so you can't do this or we're screwed. So it's something that is very complicated that's going to be developed after because it has to be done with specialists, but it's something that we dream about.
Well, you've come a long way, and I just want to make sure everyone who's left here understands that. I mean, you guys have, I mean, just getting a kind of consensus in the Francophone writing community over this question was an enormous effort that had a human cost to it. It was a really, really tough culture change that UNEQ is in the process of making.
Yes. And we still have some people that are against, that are going to criticize what's being done, and that's fine. And we're going to talk with them and we're going to present our side, our arguments, and hopefully what we do should help writers have better conditions, better living wage, that will help them have enough money to write more books and have more freedom and have it's going to make a how do you say milieu?
Milieu.
All right.
Sorry.
I'll take it. So it's going to be it's going to be more dynamic. And what we see is that when our colleagues sell more, it benefits everyone because readers want more good books, so they're gonna go back to the bookstores, gonna buy more books, and it helps everyone. So we
It
have
was a win-win, yes.
yeah, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I'm very happy to hear that you're coming around, that the idea of it being win-win is, you know, you've made progress on that. There was a lot of resistance, and there was a, you know, I think we can call it a big backlash, and you've moved on. It's pretty incredible. It's inspirational. So, on that note, does anybody who's left in the room, you know, want to jump in and say anything or ask? I did notice in the chat, Elise Moser, I think, is gone now, but she did suggest that we bring an author named Sean Michaels into the process, who is at TWUC. You guys, do you know him? No, okay. We'll try to bring him in because he would maybe have a useful contribution from the Writers Union of Canada. I think that would probably, I think QWF is going to need a bit of help in moving into the kinds of activities that we're talking about. It's really not what we do in the same way. Tanya, did you have anything you wanted to add? No, Tanya is our president, by the way.
No, I wrote it in the chat. Thank you very much, everyone. Pierre, merci beaucoup. Geneviève, Julie, also thank you so much for all your efforts for this presentation. And it's a lot of information to digest. We'll probably need another such kind of info session, or maybe a roundtable actually would be good, where people could come with their questions, and then, you know, we could kind of discuss things together. Let's see what if that's possible at QWF in the new year.
Okay, we'll do
Again,
we'll do a debrief and decide what our next steps are. Great. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions?
There's Edwards who said the book fairs is an interesting question. Indie or non-Quebec publishers, writers, or arts of the system. Yes, well, so are you more in comics or novels?
No, novels. Yeah.
In novels. So yeah, well, it's as I said before, for indie writers, there's not going to be changes on the publishing side, but for the book fairs representation, and that could be a great help. So yeah, it's something, but so it's going to be a long road, because either we need to talk to the associations or every event individually, and always respect their capacity to pay. And so some are volunteers, and they have sometimes absolutely no funds. So it's going to be a long road, like I said.
All right. Well, great. Well, listen, thank you both so much. I think this was a great session, a great starting session for us. So I guess that we should speak soon about next steps and anybody else we want to bring in. And, you know, to define how the QWF is going to be able to and participate in this process. We have some work to do on our end, figuring that out as well. So, okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Rodney, do you have anything you want to say to wrap this up, or we're good?
I just wanted to thank everyone again. You know, I'll send out a copy of this recording together with the PowerPoint presentation. It will probably be sometime next week, because I don't have access to the participant list right now, but I'll definitely send out all the information to, now, not just to the people who attended, but to everyone who registered for this session.
Okay.
So, because I know some people register, but they're unable to show, etc., etc.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you all so much. It's been a
thanks,
pleasure.
and we'll all speak soon.
Bye bye.
Thank you.